The phenomenon most of us recognize as modern freak shows began in the 19th century, but the origins of such exhibitions reach back to the 17th century. During that era, individuals with medical anomalies that drastically transformed their appearance would earn a livelihood by traveling and placing themselves on display. In this video, we reveal astonishing circus human marvels whose rare conditions, perseverance, and talent elevated them to legendary status. These aren't just sideshow acts. They're stories of survival that will leave you just speechless. Number 15. Maurice Till. Maurice Till was born in Russia back in 1903 and in early childhood appeared no different than any other human boy. But everything shifted at 17. Diagnosed with acromegaly, which is a hormonal condition that causes abnormal bone growth, Maurice's face and hands began expanding rapidly. But he didn't retreat. He stepped forward. Fluent in 9 languages, a devout Catholic, and even a published poet, Maurice moved to France and later the US, where he entered professional wrestling. His ring name, the French Angel. More than a spectacle, he was a champion. In the ring, his power was undeniable. He claimed the American Wrestling Association World Heavyweight title. Fans cheered. Kids looked up to him. Yet, beneath the strongman image, Maurice endured ongoing illness and pain. Before dying in 1954, he allowed life masks of his face to be made. Those plaster molds now sit in museums, marking the story of a man who turned a rare disorder into legend and may have inspired the famous Shrek. Number 14. Grace McDaniels. Grace was born in 1888 with Sturge-Weber syndrome, a condition that caused severe facial birthmarks and disfigurement. In a world dyed-on look, she was labeled the mule-faced lady. But behind that cruel stage name was a woman defined not by looks, but by resilience. In the 1930s, she joined Harry Lewiston's traveling circus, earning enough to support both herself and her son, Elmer. She became a staple in the show, but always on her terms. Grace often refused degrading photos and made sure her son got an education. Those who knew her described her as intelligent, gentle, and fiercely protective. She wasn't chasing fame, just survival and stability. Grace wasn't bitter. She was determined. When she passed away in 1958, Elmer buried her in their hometown with a modest gravestone. There were no lights or banners, just peace. Grace's story is not one of pity, but of quiet dignity in a world that too often looked the other way. Number 13. Maryanne Beavenon. Maryanne Beavenon was born in England in 1874. She lived a modest life as a nurse, married a loving husband, and raised 4 children. But after her husband's sudden death, Mary's health began to change. She developed acromegaly, which is a hormonal disorder that enlarged and hardened her facial features and frame. Widowed and desperate to provide for her children, she entered an ugliest woman contest and won. That victory opened doors to circus and sideshow contracts. Though deeply demeaning, Mary accepted, not seeking fame, but survival. She toured widely across Europe and America, always presenting herself with dignity despite public ridicule. For audiences, she was often an oddity. For her family, she was their provider. Behind every cruel headline stood a devoted mother, enduring harsh stares to keep her children fed. Mary died in 1933, but today she is remembered with sympathy and respect, her life embodying both the cruelty of exploitation and the strength of a mother's devotion. Number 12. The Two-Headed Man. History never recorded his name, but sideshow banners did. The Two-Headed Man was born with parasitic twins, a rare condition where an undeveloped second head remains fused to a functioning body. He became a must-see figure in early 20th century circus circuits. Some claimed the second head twitched. Others insisted it whispered. Whether those stories were real or imagined, one fact remained. the audience never granted him full humanity. In truth, parasitic twins result from incomplete embryonic division, a condition as rare as it is haunting. But during the golden era of freak shows, scientific explanation took a back seat to eerie fascination. His existence was no longer his own. He became a symbol, a myth, and an object of grotesque intrigue. Eventually, he vanished from documentation, unnamed and unburied in the public's memory. A chilling reminder that while a crowd may applaud, it rarely empathizes. Number 11. Suzie, the Elephant Girl. In a culture obsessed with appearance, Suzie was born with ichthyosis, a skin condition causing extreme dryness, thickened texture, and scaling. Circus audiences knew her by cruel labels like Elephant Girl, but to those around her, she was far more a survivor. Her skin constantly cracked, bled, and required painstaking care, yet she endured the circus lights and endless stares, not from vanity, but necessity. For many with differences, sideshows offered what society did not: employment and belonging. Suzie turned her condition into a presentation, sometimes educating spectators, sometimes simply enduring their gawking. Behind every performance was relentless physical pain and the deeper toll of objectification. Yet she pressed on. Suzie's act was never about spectacle alone. It was resilience under pressure. Her story underscores the way sideshows exploited suffering, while also offering sanctuary. She carried her condition like armor, standing as proof that survival sometimes demands stepping into the harshest spotlight of all. Number 10. Johnny Eck. Before CGI and stunt doubles, there was Johnny Eck, a man who transformed disbelief into cheers. Nicknamed the half-boy or the man with no body, Johnny was born in 1911 with sacral agenesis, a condition that left him with no usable legs. But he never considered himself half of anything. He taught himself to walk on his hands. Not just walk, but perform feats so agile, audiences couldn't look away. He even played basketball, darting across the court using only his arms. Uniquely, Johnny had a twin brother, Robert, who joined him on stage and supported him behind the scenes. Their closeness became part of the act. Outside the spotlight, Johnny was a Renaissance man. He painted, sculpted, built miniatures, and even acted, most famously in Todd Browning's 1932 film, Freaks. Later in life, he operated a miniature train ride in his hometown of Baltimore and lived into his 70s. Johnny once said, "I'm not a sideshow freak, I'm a performer." Number 9. Millie and Christine McCoy. Millie and Christine were born conjoined in North Carolina in 1851 into the brutal reality of slavery. Connected at the base of their spines, the twins were sold as infants and passed between showmen, treated less as children and more as commodities. Yet their resilience was extraordinary. They learned to walk, dance, speak multiple languages, and sing in perfect harmony. Promoters billed them as the two-headed nightingale, and they captivated audiences on both sides of the Atlantic. After emancipation, they finally gained greater control over their careers and finances, a remarkable achievement for formerly enslaved black women with disabilities in the 19th century. Despite lives shaped by exploitation, they carved out success, celebrated as stars in America and Europe. Millie and Christine remained inseparable until their deaths in 1912, passing within hours of each other. All right, now, let's head over to Number 8. Pip and Flip. Next came a pair of sisters whose appearance sparked curiosity, but whose joy left a lasting mark. Pip and Flip were conjoined twins with microcephaly, a condition marked by a significantly undersized head and developmental impairments. Marketed as the twins of Yucatan, their background was likely fabricated to sound more exotic. The truth is, we still don't know exactly where they were born. But what's clear, their presence mattered more than their origin. Audiences were drawn not just to their look, but to the light they brought with them. Childlike in spirit, their energy backstage was said to lift everyone's mood. Pip and Flip performed with the Circus of Horrors and later gained lasting recognition through the film Freaks, one of the rare cinematic windows into authentic sideshow life. In an industry that often exploits difference, they quietly reminded people that not all value is measured by intellect or convention. Their presence spoke louder than any spectacle ever could. Number 7. Alice Elizabeth Doherty. Alice Elizabeth Doherty was born in Minneapolis in 1887 with hypertrichosis lanuginosa, a condition that covered her body in long, fine, silvery blonde hair. By the age of 5 months, she was already being displayed in storefronts and traveling exhibitions. Marketed as the Minnesota Woolly Girl, Alice's life in show business was chosen for her, not by her. Her parents took her on tours across the Midwest, earning money from her unique appearance. While her condition was harmless, it drew relentless fascination. Yet Alice herself was remembered as intelligent, kind-hearted, and fond of reading, traits often overshadowed by promoters who focused solely on her unusual look. By her early 20s, Alice retired from the stage, choosing a quieter life outside of constant scrutiny. Though her story remains bittersweet, her image endured on posters and in memory. Alice never sought the spotlight, but for years she lived beneath it, her childhood defined by exhibition before she reclaimed a life of her own. Number 6. Fedor Jeffu. Fedor Jeffu was born in St. Petersburg, Russia in 1868 with hypertrichosis, the same condition as Crow. Under the management of his showman father, he began touring Eastern Europe before being recruited by P.T. Barnum. Renamed Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy, he was advertised as feral, barking and growling on command. His thick facial hair and wolf-like appearance were natural, but his animalistic stage persona was forced. Audiences adored the act, but away from the spotlight, Fedor was soft-spoken, polite, and multilingual. He enjoyed reading and learning, far removed from the caricature imposed on him. His life, however, was short. In 1904, at only 36, he died of pneumonia. Yet his image lived on in posters and photographs, and later in cultural references, his appearance even rumored to inspire the design of Chewbacca in Star Wars. Though exploited as a beastly marvel, Fedor Jeffu was, above all, a gentle and intelligent man, misunderstood by his era. Number 5. The Cuckoo, the Bird Girl. Born in Georgia in 1880, Minnie Woolsey was unlike anyone most had ever encountered. Living with Virchow-Seckel syndrome, a rare form of dwarfism sometimes referred to as bird-headed due to its features, she had a small frame, prominent eyes, and a sloped jawline. But where some saw oddity, others saw potential. She reinvented herself as Cuckoo the Bird Girl. Draped in feather-covered costumes and towering headpieces, she embodied a persona that blended myth with mortality. Her motions mimicked a bird, arms fluttering, feet skipping, and her stage presence was hypnotic. She's best remembered for her scene in Freaks, where her manic dance atop a banquet table left behind a strange, unforgettable image. But that performance wasn't just for shock, it was defiance. Minnie turned humiliation into spectacle. Her act balanced the unsettling with the mesmerizing, forcing audiences to face their own biases. Her later life remains unknown, but her dancing image stays frozen in film and burned into memory. Number 4. Pauline Musters. Born in the Netherlands in 1876, Pauline Musters stood only 21.8 inches tall, earning her a record as the shortest woman in documented history. But don't be fooled by the number. Pauline had towering talent. Trained as an acrobat and dancer, she dazzled audiences throughout Europe with graceful steps, balance tricks, and a bold stage presence. Nicknamed Princess Pauline, she toured in Paris, London, and eventually New York. But global fame came with risk. Traveling as a medically delicate performer in the late 19th century meant constant exposure to illness. In 1895, just 2 days after her American debut, Pauline died of pneumonia and meningitis. She was only 19. Her sudden death shocked the press. Newspapers didn't mourn a novelty, they mourned an artist. That alone says everything. Her short life left a wide impression, and her name still appears in history books, not for her height, but for her charisma. Number 3. Annie Jones. Annie was born in Virginia in 1865 and by age 5 had grown a full beard caused by hirsutism, likely the result of a hormonal condition. That same year, she began performing with P.T. Barnum, billed as the bearded girl. But Annie wasn't content to remain silent on stage. As she matured, she became outspoken, objecting publicly to the term freak and demanding respect for herself and others in the sideshow world. She toured internationally, gracing European stages in elegant Victorian gowns that emphasized her dignity rather than diminishing it. Audiences admired not just her appearance, but her poise and wit. Annie married twice and built a reputation as one of Barnum's most admired performers. She died young, in 1902 at only 37, but her influence lived on. Annie is remembered not merely for her beard, but for the courage to defy ridicule. Number 2. Frances O'Connor. Try brushing your hair, writing a letter, or sipping water, all without using your arms. That was everyday life for Frances O'Connor, born in 1914 without upper limbs. But what could have been a quiet, hidden existence became a bold journey into the spotlight. At just 15, Frances joined the Ringling Brothers Circus, not to shock, but to show genuine skill. She drank, sewed, ate, and even applied makeup entirely with her feet. No exaggeration, just pure precision. She lived with her mother in Sheridan, Wyoming, and toured extensively across the country. Her act wasn't built on spectacle or pity, it was based on ability and admiration. Frances didn't present herself as a freak. She stood as proof of human adaptability and self-reliance. She later married and eventually retired from performing. But those who witnessed her stagecraft never forgot her quiet confidence. Number 1. Daisy and Violet Hilton. Born in 1908 in Brighton, England, Daisy and Violet Hilton were conjoined twins, joined at the hips and sharing blood circulation but not internal organs. Their biological mother abandoned them at birth. They were taken in by Mary Hilton, who saw not daughters, but dollars. For decades, Daisy and Violet were packaged as miracles. They learned to sing, dance, and play musical instruments. They toured across Europe and the US, appearing in vaudeville acts and starring in films like Chained for Life. But offstage, their lives were rigidly controlled. Their income was seized. Every decision was made for them. Only in adulthood did they win control of their own careers. While they finally experienced moments of independence, hardship followed them. They died in 1969 from the Hong Kong flu. Their bodies were discovered days later. They had shared everything, a stage, a body, and a lifelong struggle for agency. Their legacy remains one of strength, survival, and stolen freedom. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon in the next one.